Welcome back to part 2 of this module. So, in this part, we shall be looking at the principles of graphic design as well as the rules of graphics design. Now, the principles here describe how best a designer can actually manipulate and coordinate design elements in order to come up with an awesome work. We've looked at the design element, so the principles will enable you to have that ability that you can manipulate and coordinate the design elements in order to create great stuff. The first here is balance. Balance has to do with distributing the design elements evenly. Note the word evenly throughout a layout. So balance aims to provide structure and stability of design. Everything must have balance on your design. Balance to the left, balance to the right, all right? So that is about balance. Very important. The next is alignment. So alignment has to do with organization in appearance. All right? All aspects of design must be adjusted in a way to create this visual connection between the elements. Your typography should be aligned. Your shapes should have this connection. You should be able to adjust them in a way that to create a visual connection between the elements included in your design. The next is contrast. So contrast, this is an important principle used to create emphasis on certain aspects of design. Contrast is very key. You need to pay attention to this because contrast is essential for maintaining the distinction between similar elements in a design. Just look at the illustration on your screen. If you notice, there are two colors and also there are two shapes. So these shapes are similar. All right, these shapes are similar, but the use of contrast has made it in such a way that there is a distinction between them. All right. So let me give you an example. Contrast has to do with differentiating between light and dark, large and small. So just imagine if the blue diamond shape is on the blue background and the gold diamond shape is on the other side. It will be difficult for you to be able to identify the shapes because the background because there's a low contrast. All right, so contrast is essential for maintaining the distinction between similar elements. The next is proximity. Proximity in English simply means closeness. All right, but this does not necessarily mean the similar elements must be close. Yes, it means that they should be connected visually. All right, they should be connected visually. Also, objects that are near each other can be made in such a way that they will be perceived to be related, or they should be seen as a unit, just like the illustration on your screen. We have circles, but these circles have been in close proximity such that they are seen as a unit. You perceive them to be related because they've been grouped in a particular order. All right, so that is about proximity. It creates this visual connection. So that is about the principles of graphic design. There are many more principles, but for this course, I just gave about 4 basic principles. The next is rules of graphic design. Now, just like any other skill, graphic design also comes with its rules, and your knowledge of them will enable you to do better and professionally And that is what will differentiate you from someone learning by the roadside or someone beating around the bush. Alright, so it is very important to pay attention to these rules in order to avoid some of them. And also, even if you're manipulating some of them, you will manipulate them with understanding. Number 1, avoid poor readability. The primary purpose of design is communication, just like we stated in the introduction. So if your work isn't legible, then you won't be able to convey the intended message. You won't be able to convey the intended message. So what hinders readability or legibility? Number 1, too low contrast between text and background. Recall that we talked about contrast as an important principle, where I said it is essential for maintaining distinction between similar elements in design. So contrast is very important. Alright, the next is the type size being too small. Also, overuse of capital letters. And then in this case, on the illustration on your screen, use of the font type that is not readable. The one that is above, or both of them are script fonts, but the one above is more readable than the one below, and that is because of the font type used. So in design, it is very important to avoid readability so that the main purpose of your design will not be truncated. Next, avoid color discord. Here you should be sure you don't use colors that is too distracting. It takes away people from the actual message. So to avoid color discord, you need to understand the color palette and the color theory. And also look at past use of color and see what works. Look at for other people's design and see their use of color and how it works. Alright. Next, always keen. Keening has to do with adjusting the space between characters in your typography or in your type. So this makes for a neat and orderly piece of text. You see, the illustration explains it further. The one above is well keened, while the one below is poorly keened. So always keen your work. Make sure the space between characters are adjusted properly. The next, avoid use of many fonts. The use of many fonts. Limit yourself to at most 3 or 4 fonts per design. In fact, many designers recommend 3 font max. So because too many fonts will look unprofessional and your work will be ugly. That's just the truth. You cannot be using about 10 fonts in just one design. No. Avoid the use of many fonts. Establish a purposeful hierarchy. This is a powerful rule. You must establish a purposeful hierarchy in the arrangement of visual elements in order to signify the importance. Not all the elements in your design have the same importance. Some are more important than the other ones. So there should be this purposeful hierarchy in the arrangement of visual elements. Very important. So thank you for staying to the end of this model. And this was what we looked at. We started from the introduction, what is graphic design, elements of graphic design, principles of graphic design, and lastly, rules of graphics design. Thank you so much for staying to the end, and I strongly believe you've learned a lot. See you in the next module.